birthday. I'm trying to do a format that's not in my car. A lot of times I am driving when I make videos, but the thing is I'm not the best at video, but I'm wanting to have something somewhat presentable. So we are at war with Iran, and Iran has come into the picture as a militant, territory-seeking, death to America, not only with their proxies, but now direct strikes against Israel for the last 2 years. The president's had enough, and we've had enough. What I don't understand is when he posted on social media, there were so many emojis. I hate to sound like a millennial, but emojis of 10,000 hearts and likes. There's probably about 4,000 or 5,000 of angry emojis from those leftists who do not want intervention in the Middle East, because they're all like, we don't want more Bush wars or forever wars or 20-year wars. But the thing is this regime has constantly killed children, children for not wearing their hijabs. They have had proxies massacre Israelis since October 7th. So I think this is 4 years too late. But I do understand that every time the president does anything, the left goes crazy. But I think it's for our best national interest, and that it's joint between Israel and the United States is just fantastic. But I also want to say that if we are at a state of war, and I've said this, ever since I was 19, I was about to join the military when there were like Syria gassing their own people, things like that. It just never escalated to a conflict that was on a global scale. But we might be entering some kind of World War scenario, especially if the United States annexes Cuba. And Cuba has been on this channel. I've been talking a lot about Cuba. What happened in Cuba was a civil war type of attack where Cuban refugees, independent from the United States government this time, had 10 people ride their boat to the island of Cuba with guns and ammunition to take over the Cuban government. This group has a lot of members inside of Cuba. The one thing they do not have are weapons. So when the United States government came out last night and said that they may have a friendly takeover of Cuba, they are referring to either annexation or control. But what the United States government has always wanted, and why there has been restrictions for the last not 60 years, but since 67, feels like 67 years, is that they want the Cuban people to be in such gridlock on their country that they overthrow their government. And that's what's happening, guys. The Cubans who died, two of them, well, one of them was American, one of them who was wounded was an American, with the Cuban nationalists living in the United States. This is exactly the perfect storm that the United States wanted so that the Cuban people overthrow the Castro regime. And that is what is happening, folks. And it's going to be happening probably throughout the next months. It's very important to know that the Cuban regime may be in American territory by 2027, maybe by the end of 2026. The people who I speak with in Cuba, they do not have anything more than 2 hours of electricity during the day. Food shortages are evident. There's no transportation. I was going to visit Cuba to visit some friends that I had there. But now, with the break of a civil war in Cuba, an American is probably not going to be the best thing, just jumping around and hopping around the island, especially with no transportation, no food. Sorry, that's no electricity. So when you look at the lives of Cubans after a regime change and post American takeover, all the communists wanted were they wanted to bring the illusion that Americans were mistreating the natives and not giving them correct compensation for working in hotels and casinos. Sounds like the Democratic Party to me, like, oh, the rich are too powerful and wealthy, colonialism, capitalism is bad, yada, yada, yada. When the Cuban people accept that and embrace that, immediately they went down to one bowl of rice a day. And that was from people who I know who are in Cuba and who are in their 60s. There was no time, the seizing of private property. And to this day, you cannot have a private business. Airbnb is allowed because of Obama, but the rest of the restrictions on the island are very, very harsh. There are no private restaurants. There are no private businesses in the sense of car rentals. Everything's run by the government, absolutely everything. The only thing that you can do is sell clothing or goods on the street, but it cannot be within four walls. And this matters because what I was leading into, the post-American takeover of Cuba, would mean not only democracy where they can elect their own leaders, but what it means is there's going to be a cascading effect where you will see American companies go into Cuba, probably hotels, probably things like 7-Eleven, which they will with open arms, because believe me, there's not a lot of food there. It's a day's salary just to buy a Red Bull. So imagine getting a Red Bull at a price where Cubans can actually have an influx of wealth. There will no be buying and selling of dollars on the black market because the dollar will be used as a currency, just like in Puerto Rico. And in the same way Puerto Rico has kept their national identity, so will Cuba. But I don't think it's going to be a state. I think it's going to be like a territory that is going to be in a transitionary government. If Castro's regime is out from the inside and the Denzel president is just taken out by a coup, which is what happened 2 days ago. It was really a coup, which is an illegal takeover of the government or an attempted takeover of the government. Then it's going to be super, super clear who the players are. It'll be the opposition, the militia, if you will, who takes over the Cuban government and then works with the United States to have a proper democratically elected governor, or it's going to be the United States retaliating over the loss of American life, such as the Americans who were on the boat when it hit Cuba 2 days ago. And that's important because the United States military could easily take out the Cuban regime, but they need a cause because we do not get involved unless American lives are lost. And that's been pretty much a long-term thing. A lot of people were upset with President Polk because he did something where the Mexican-U.S. war sent troops to the border. The border was disputed. The Mexicans shot U.S. troops. Then he went to Congress and said, hey, look, they're attacking our soldiers. And then they declared war. Congress declared war. But in this case, Congress would have to declare war against Cuba. And then the United States would take out the regime's forces, and the Cuban people will be liberated, and the country will be annexed. And I'm really looking forward to the annexation of Cuba or the independence of Cuba because they need money. The Cubans who I was with a taxi driver in Cuba a few years ago, and he was saying how great things were during the Obama era when he opened up relations and trade. But the Cuban people know that the US dollar is going to flow into the country, and that's why they're excited. And they knew that when the US dollar flooded into the country during Obama, everything got better for the people. Now, the reason why it was restricted, obvious reasons, they did not give up their communist ways. And you look at the situation right now with the entire country being on lockdown because of lack of oil, which also proves, I was the one who said, even on this channel, back when Biden was president, third world countries cannot live off of electric cars and solar. They are 30 years behind. There are not going to be a Tesla driving down the streets of Cuba or Colombia or maybe Mexico, but they're not going to be able to get off oil. So this whole thing about the United States getting completely to electric cars is BS. It's impossible. 5% of cars in the United States are electric. And to say we're going to lead the world in that initiative when the rest of the world cannot survive 20 days without shipments of oil. Oil is necessary, and it's the most important thing to the global economy and the lifeblood. So when Democrats say eliminate fossil fuels, bring to electric, it's really to manipulate people into giving over their rights and giving power to the government, because the US government well off knows that we cannot make it without oil. In the same way this country has collapsed without oil. So some people gave it 20 days, some people gave it 15 days, but it's going down. So also we need to talk about how President Donald Trump said that he's looking for a friendly takeover of Cuba, which means he's in talks with the current government. And when he says things like that, it's like he's giving them a chance. Either you're going to relinquish the communistic ways, or you're going to be taken over. Because what we are looking at is such a deeply rooted communistic authoritarianism state. They do not want to give it up. They do not want to give up their gridlock on every industry. There are no private businesses in Cuba, like I said. They will not relinquish these capitalist opportunity-making machines to the people. They want every Cuban to make 200 pesos a day. And that's $1 can buy 2 days' salary for any Cuban. So we have to say, do you stand with Cubans? Do you stand with Latin America? Do you stand with people who are on the verge of starvation? Do you stand with people who have an extreme deficit of heart and spirit because they cannot charge their phones to talk to their loved ones more than 2 hours a day? Now, the blockade will continue until the regime is taken out, assassinated from within. The coup continues, or the United States steps in and just completely takes over the island to relieve the Cuban people from the dictatorship that has lasted for so long. If it happens, Cuba will be the next Miami on an island, and they will have quality of life, and there will not be restrictions. The Cuban government does not leave anything up to the people. They freeze passports of young professionals. They are unable to leave the island. The reason why they keep now it's the daily wage is 50 US cents a day. They keep it so low because they know that Cubans cannot buy tickets to leave the island. So even if you wanted to leave Cuba, you couldn't because you don't have the money, and no one will ever have the money. It's a gridlocked state. Canadians can't go. Most airlines have stopped flights because of refueling purposes. And now we're on the verge of freeing a people who deserve to be freed for so long. So I want to know what your thoughts are. And if you would like to share this with people, that'd be great. I've had like 69 subscribers, and a lot of them stick around for viewing, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I would like the message to be spread. And freedom and democracy will be spread across America. First of all, of course, Venezuela. Cuba will be free. Iran will be free. And anyone else who wants to join us will also remain free if they're not free.